Ending today. MPs will have a morning session from 9:30 today where they will bid each other farewell. After today's session, MPs can only convene again if the Speaker recalls members for a special sitting. How has the 12th Parliament performed in your view? That's the last topic we're having right now this morning at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. We'd like to hear your scorecard for them, and that's where we start, Kipto. How have they performed, and what should the 13th Parliament avoid by all means?
I think I will give the 12th Parliament an average score, but I'll give them a better performance than the 11th Parliament under the first Jubilee regime, because predominantly the members were almost similar in those two. 50 to 55% of the members in the first Jubilee government were in the same second term for Jubilee. The reason I'm giving them an average score is that Parliament has envisaged, or the legislature has envisaged post-2010, was a legislature that stands on its own feet and plays a significant oversight role. Look at the provision, the constitutional provision as to their role on budget-making process. Before 2010, the budget-making process was under the domain of Treasury. But post-2010, that power shifted to the budget office in Parliament. And that is why you find them having power, for example, on issue about debt management, about debt ceiling, about allocations of the several, whether national or county. Remember the vicious fight that was fought on the floors of the Senate for almost 6 months as to revenue allocation or revenue sharing between the county, the formula. So for me, I'll give them an average score because they missed that opportunity to stamp their authority. And the lesson, significant lesson that I want this Parliament to learn, if from 2013, Parliament had taken up that space and be as solid as it comes when it comes to oversight. And I'm not saying that they can work independently. I've been a speaker and I understand the limits of independence of a legislature. You are interdependent with the executive, and I'm sure that applies at the national level, because the membership of both the National Assembly and Senate are politicians from a political formation, and the leadership of the political formation has an influence as to the decisions in the Parliament. But there are bare minimums, and the bare minimums for me is where now I'm coming in with the issue of lost opportunities. Yeah. How did we get to a level of every year raising our debt ceiling? How did Parliament bend backwards over and over again, up to where we are right now with a 10 trillion mark? If Parliament had put its feet down and say, we can support the agenda of the government, but there are red lines that they can't cross on matters debt ceiling, we wouldn't be in the mess we are in. However, I would also want to give them credit for institutionalizing or breathing life to the constitution and legislation. As a county government or as a county assembly, we may have benefited from the support we got from the Senate, for example, in so many different ways. In fact, for me, the biggest mark the Senate leaves, and I really look forward to the next Senate where Prof will be sitting. One mark Senate made, and this is now under the second term of Jubilee. If there's one arm of government or legislature that did exemplary well, was Senate. The objectivity level was on another level, despite being more or less a duopoly between the wing led by Raila Odinga and the wing led by Uhuru Kenyatta. And Handshake, of course, came and deflated that. And then you had the Tanga team. One thing I liked about them, they prosecuted the issues objectively. And one of the main ones that stood out was the issue of revenue sharing. It is a debate that has been raging for 10 years. What is the best formula that works for all counties? How do you ensure equity? How do you ensure that the resources get to the areas that are necessary? And importantly, how do you ensure equitable distribution of the resources? Senate rose to the occasion. Number two, protection of the devolved system of government has always been the domain of Senate, and they played that role significantly. So I want to take home that I'll give them a 53–54%, both the National Assembly and the Senate, in the sense that entrenching the laws and legislations. Look at the point we're talking about IBC. As less than 2 months to the election, they are still legislating. They never lost their sight on matters legislation. But what is important, and the lesson Prof and the team are taking as they come in as a new team, trying to have that control and strength as a legislative arm. You can be interdependent, but put your feet down on your independence and your place on matters legislation.
Prof, how do you rate the performance of Parliament? And there's the National Assembly and the Senate as well. And what are the likes of yourselves who are hopeful of coming in the next one? What could you learn from this one?
The constitutional underpinnings on the working of the National Assembly, of course, is found in Article 95. And then appendings on the workings of Senate is in Article 96 of the Constitution. And Trevor, largely, I would say that Parliament has performed sufficiently well compared to the previous Parliament. The previous Parliament had the task of transformation or enacting legislation in line with Schedule 4 to enable counties. They had a whole melange of work that they were doing to enable counties operate and to transition, basically. They are still transitioning. This Parliament, because of the time frames, has only had the burden of the division and the fight, initially coming in as set under then Tanga came in after the split and the handshake.
Yeah.
But initially you had a mechanism where you had a majoritarian Jubilee members then later is transformed, and we saw the leadership in Parliament change.
Yeah.
With quite an amazing track. But I'm happy that Parliament was able to rise to the occasion and give the resources that it had under Chapter 4 to the counties, for instance, but also enact legislation that enabled this country to move forward. I would give them a 60% for the work that they have done. I think Justin Muturi, the Speaker, worked very well. He gave very sound stewardship to the parliamentary team. I think I must laud him for that effort. Fairly sober, has a stature. He's done very well for Parliament, the Speaker. Now, having said so, however, Parliament would have done better in allocation, in division of revenue. Let me say division, because division is between Parliament and National Assembly and Senate, and then allocation, which is the role of National Assembly.
Yeah.
They did fairly badly. There was a struggle where, and I think even now we still have a fight at the Supreme Court on legislation and the role of Senate. I think that needs to be ironed out. Then the resource question for Senate still remains undetermined, because National Assembly has to make the final decision on enabling Senate operate to undertake its functions. Senate did extremely well. Senate has proved to be more mature, more strategic, and I think it is the ideal house for debate, proper debate. If you see the senators who serve, the likes of Mutula Kilonzo, Murkomen, Senator Orengo, Senator Senior Counsel Wako, debate issues in Senate. There are, motions that were not only debated objectively, but with substance, no shouting matches. And senators, the 68-member Senate, had sufficient time to deliberate over questions, and many of them emerged as sober in their oversight role. You remember they did about 3 impeachments. One turned positive. Of course, we overturned it at the High Court. Others turned negative. But essentially, Senate did extremely well. Okay. I would give Senate a 70%.
Okay.
They did extremely well.
60%, Senate 70%.
Senate 70%. And I think Senate, looking forward to working in Senate once I'm elected on the 9th of August, because I shall, I must say that there's need for value addition, and I hope that all those coming to Senate will be those who will add value to the legislative process, so that Senate becomes the ideal house to check the 349-member Parliament on a number of questions. And I hope that any law, and I've seen lots of legislation, including the one on the borrowing, the
debt ceiling.
The debt ceiling of 10 trillion that has been raised.
Yeah.
Now that goes to Senate because it affects every county, because the debt is for every Kenyan.
Okay.
And I think what we look toward, that even as we move into the next election, that we're going to look at development, a double-digit development under Azimio, so that we can be able to deal with Azimio la Ugatuzi, Azimio la Jitihada, and ensure that the plight of women and single mothers is increased, and that Baba Care also addresses itself to questions of universal health care for the people of this country.
Okay, let me bring in Mukwanja. Mukwanja, what is your rating of the performance of both houses of parliament, the National Assembly and the Senate?
My take would be that if you are to compare the bicameral house, obviously for very good reasons, the Senate quite did well. I agree. They put forward their best foot in terms of protecting devolution. Their best show was in regard to the revenue sharing formula. And of course, taking on the National Assembly, including the walk to the court to try to challenge and protect their mandate was a good one. And of course, again, going back to negotiate, it was a good show of maturity. But even if you follow the conversations, as Professor Ojenda has put it, you would tend to want to follow conversations in the Senate, the debates in the Senate much more than the National Assembly. And as an officer who also appears before the various committees of the House, I want to go on record without any fear of contradiction that I have particularly enjoyed sessions with committees of the Senate.